What if I told you that most lifters are building bodies that look strong but are falling apart from the inside? It happens slowly. You're building strength, adding size, you feel like you're crushing it. But little by little, pain creeps in. Your back stays tight, your hips feel locked, and your shoulders don't move like they used to. And in all the YouTube videos I watched when I started lifting, nobody warned me about this. They only talked about lifting heavier, building muscle, and chasing PRs. Never about how the same training could be making your body rigid, painful, and immobile. But I broke out of that trap by changing one fundamental part of the way I train. I'm Achy, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and pro-natural bodybuilder, and in this video, I'll show you how to unlock the same movement freedom before it's too late. First, why is this even necessary? Traditional lifting is tried and true. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. And that's just it. This isn't a reinventing. The skill of wielding heavy tools has been used by fighters and warriors worldwide for centuries. Persian warriors used maces and clubs, also known as meals and gors, to train their warriors for combat. For centuries, the Chinese had a kettlebell-like tool, the stone lock, that was used to train martial artists and Shaolin monks. This practice is still used by young and old alike to make the body stronger and improve movement ability and reflexes. Traditional lifts also typically have distinct start and stop phases. You lift it and bring it down. In contrast, motions of the rope, bell, club, and mace are continuous and rhythmic. These practices involve rotational movement ability, which is present in every single sport. We're going to dive into this later in the video, by the way. But this builds a level of movement fluidity and coordination. You need to keep the energy flowing through the implements. Many practitioners liken kettlebell, club, and rope training to a martial art in itself. There's technique required to learn all of the movements, and when learned, you can create so many unique combinations. This doesn't mean we should stop using dumbbells and barbells, and learning to develop the skills to wield these tools will expand our body's ability to move dynamically and fluidly without pain. You improve strength while also improving the timing and sequencing of muscle activation to move the tools through space efficiently. The body learns to generate force and redirect it or decelerate it smoothly, rather than just lifting it and putting it down. Now, I have 3 questions for you. First, how often do you throw stuff? Next, how often do you swing stuff? And lastly, if you already throw and swing, how often do you do it with your non-dominant arm? Think about this because we're coming back to it. In traditional lifts, say a machine shoulder press, the scapula, or your shoulder blades, might be pinned against a bench, providing minimal movement, while the shoulders press up and down. But the shoulders are made for more than just presses, lateral raises, and face pulls.
Before the kettlebells and the mace, I felt like crackly. I was consistently dislocating my left shoulder, at least 4 times. So it was always like dislocation, work back to getting the strength, dislocated, work back to getting the strength, which led me to the mace. It got my arm back in places that it wasn't going because of it's just that range of motion wasn't being hit. And ever since using kettlebells and the mace bars, I haven't had a shoulder injury. It's been years.
Humans have historically been very good at swinging, slinging, and throwing motions that involve the use of the shoulder's full capacity, along with coordination of the whole body. This joint is a ball and socket, and most training doesn't do a great job at developing the shoulder's full abilities.
When people have a shoulder injury, let's say their right shoulder is really bothering them, a lot of times they'll be tight through the stomach and tight through the hips. As they go to push their arm up in the air, they can't do it very well because this whole side is shut down. And what you were doing there, where you were maneuvering that metal object around the back of your head, your both elbows are going up.
Exactly.
And you're getting a lot of extension.
It's what you don't see is that it takes a lot of core balance to move the weight behind you also. And that's what I explain to people too. Like, it's not just swinging the bar around. You have to be stable within your body, else the bar is gonna pull you in a direction that you don't want it to go. It feels therapeutic. It feels like you're getting a massage when the weight is going around. It feels really good.
These tools teach you how to use these areas through functional movement. Wielding tools excel at training the shoulders through a full range of motion. When you swing a mace or a club around your head, your shoulder and scapula must move freely, stabilize dynamically, and coordinate with the legs, arms, and core. And doing this compels all the scapular stabilizer muscles to engage to control the shoulder joint. Even if you're very strong, your shoulder might lack the essential mobility needed to do this smoothly. And this mobility is essential for the throwing capacity the scapula and shoulders give us as humans. This is why many people who begin to improve at swinging practices notice a reduction in pain and tightness associated with this whole region.
When I watched this video, it made me think back to when I was much younger and actually ran cross country. And you have that contralateral movement, right? It's like if you walk, it's like, okay, your left shoulder moves forward as your sort of right leg and I guess probably hip move forward at the same time, that contralateral movement. To emphasize that, you had footage in your video showing what everyone is seeing, which is someone who's done a lot of lifting, who's walking down the street and they have no contralateral movement, I shouldn't say they have no contralateral movement, but it looks like their upper bodies are frozen.
It's a block.
It's a block. And you could potentially say, well, that person is muscle bound, but that's not totally accurate. But it seems like they are plane bound, right? Because their movement patterns are so limited that, of course, like what you train for, you're going to get more of. So they have done one piece that is maybe, let's call it necessary, but not sufficient if you want athletic movement.
In this video here, I explain the spinal engine theory, so I won't spend too much time going too deep into it right now. But in essence, the spinal engine is the idea that our spine isn't just a passive column for support. It's actually a key driver of movement. Most people focus on training the neutral position of the spine, which isn't bad, but a lot of strength and development is being left on the table. As we walk, run, or sprint, the spine should naturally rotate, helping drive efficient movement. It's why good movement isn't just about strong legs or arms. It's about letting the spine move fluidly, especially through the ribcage and pelvis.
I have a reoccurring thing that I got in my lower back. It's a bunch of different things, but I think mostly it's tendonitis. It's mostly overuse because it would start to hurt and I would just ignore it and keep doing it. But one of the best ways it got better was rotational exercises. For me with martial arts, it works so well. And I'm like, why wasn't I doing that before? Like I would just do linear stuff like chin-ups, push-ups, dips, squats, all that other basic shit. But when I started doing twisting things, I'm like, man, and then I feel like I have more power now
more
with
range
things.
and ability, right?
Yes, I have more strength in my lower back. It's kind of crazy that it took me getting injured before I started doing it.
Traditional resistance training often neglects rotation while focusing on spine neutrality. Many gym exercises are bilateral and stay in the sagittal plane. There's little rotation. Again, this isn't necessarily bad, but it leaves a lot of development on the table. It's like having a diet of only carbohydrates and neglecting your protein, vegetables, and micronutrients. Life, sports, and fighting involve rotation, throwing a punch, swinging a bat, twisting to evade, coitus. And tools like ropes, bells, clubs, and maces naturally teach us the ability to produce and handle rotational forces. Many members of the Stronger Human community report feeling less aches and pains after learning rope flow. And this is because of the rotational training you get on both sides of the body. In martial arts like jiu-jitsu, you might have a dominant side that you work on sweeping your opponent towards because you feel much stronger rotation towards that side. This is one of the reasons why I used to have nagging lower back pain on my right side. I was overdoing dominant side rotation while never training rotation in a symmetrical way on both sides of my body. But with the rope, bell, club, and mace, you work the rotational ability evenly on both the right and the left side of the body. Naturally, your non-dominant side slowly becomes just as coordinated and just as efficient as your stronger dominant side. You'll become a more symmetrical mover on both sides of your body. Now, the easiest place to start with all of this is learning rope flow, and I have a free rope flow foundations course in the Stronger Human community, along with courses teaching you how to use the club, how to do kettlebell flow, a bunch of good stuff. The links are below, and you can get learning with a community of over 10,000 members. Also, I think 90% of you who've been watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you're finding the videos helpful, help a brother out, subscribe right there, click it. And we're launching channel memberships. There are 2 tiers with different benefits, so if you want to become a member, join right there. Let's get back to it. There are 5 aspects to these practices that lend themselves to becoming a better mover, athlete, and martial artist, and the one that gets me the most excited is the 5th. Comparing these movement practices to a martial art may seem a bit kooky and nonsensical, but let a brother cook. Quick story. When I started jiu-jitsu almost 10 years ago, I was 265 pounds. Guys that were 160 to 180 were sweeping me and holding me down in positions that seemed impossible to escape. As I developed more skill through the years, I learned that this wasn't just because of my opponent's strength, but their ability to find the perfect points of leverage to keep different parts of my body immobilized. These tools we've been learning about are essentially levers. A mace or a club has its mass far from the handle, so you have to leverage it with your body. This teaches you to generate force through leverage rather than pure strength. Leverage is everything in martial arts. A judoka uses leverage to throw a heavier opponent. A jiu-jitsu practitioner uses leverage to sweep his opponent, and a wrestler uses leverage on limbs to break balance. It's not about how strong you are, but how skilled you are at leveraging your body against the body of an opponent. Now, it's not like the use of leverage isn't part of traditional lifts. Here's Colton. He's the strongest powerlifter ever. When he lifts 1,058 pounds off the ground, of course he's strong, but he's also setting his body, stacking his joints perfectly, then driving his hips forward to lever the barbell off the ground. This is beautiful. Leverage at work, but the leverage we learn with swing tools is much more dynamic and works through more ranges of motion with load. For example, when you learn to swing a club, you learn that the hand placement, angles, and timing drastically affect how the swings feel. You discover mechanical advantages and disadvantages. Exactly the kind of understanding a fighter has when finding the leverage point to unbalance or control an opponent. In all martial arts, there's a focus on using the entire body in a unified way, kinetic linking from the feet to the fists. Even in internal martial arts like Tai Chi, Xin Yi, and Bagua, the concept always holds true. Internal martial arts emphasizes the mind-body connection, breath control, softness over brute strength, generating power from the inside out, rather than just isolating the muscles.
Martial arts was created by smaller people to be able to defend against larger, stronger people. And so it's learning how to use your body to maximal efficiency. And you're not going to achieve maximal efficiency if you're initiating from the shoulder. You have to initiate from the ground up and utilize the ground reactive force so it's coming up through your legs, transitioning through your hips, and then expressing itself out through the hand. I think the kettlebell, because of its dynamic nature and you're moving through multiple planes of motion, it does transfer more directly into becoming a more effective mover than a linear-based barbell program. Again, I'm not saying that kettlebells are better than barbells, but it's better for certain things.
Life.
For three-dimensional interaction. Yes.
Life.
Exactly.
You're trying to be nice. I'm trying to make some people angry. Power isn't from the arms. It comes from the ground, transfers through the legs, directed by the hips, and is expressed through the hands. These tools demand the same. You have to drive from the legs, rotate through the core, and guide with the arm. One fluid chain. This engraves the habit of recruiting multiple muscle groups in coordination. Whole body efficiency. Even kettlebells, with their offset center of gravity, teach you to leverage the momentum and redirect it with your body. For example, you use a hip snap to drive the bell forward, throwing it and catching the momentum with your body. Then, redirecting it laterally to keep the bell moving. The efficiency comes from learning to create just enough tension in your body to keep your body safe, but not so much that your body and movement become too rigid. Momentum and gravity do some of the work. And for my martial artists, does that sound familiar? As you become skilled, you learn to flow with the weight's natural path, adding input at just the right times. Like in jiu-jitsu, using an opponent's momentum against them or riding the wave of force rather than opposing it. Ultimately, these tools train you to be energy efficient in movement, a core tenet for fighters who have to conserve energy in a fight. You learn to generate maximum force with minimal wasted effort by improving technique, coordination, perfect tension, movement fluidity, and more. You learn to flow and move with weight, almost like moving with another human being. Having good reflexes and hand-eye coordination is an overlooked skill. Kettlebell juggling is fantastic for developing coordination, reflexes, timing, proprioceptive awareness, and a lot more. When you toss a kettlebell and then catch it, your eyes, brain, and muscles have to communicate instantly. The unpredictable element, even a slight variation in trajectory of the kettlebell, trains your reflexes and reaction time. You learn to adjust on the fly to snatch the handle safely. The complexity of these movements essentially forces your nervous system to get faster and more precise. By the way, the competition bells that I use are from Ziva. They're available at the Stronger Human store. These are the bells that are used in kettlebell juggling competitions because they feel really good when you throw them and have a much smoother feel when compared to other competition kettlebells. If you take up the practice of learning to juggle a kettlebell, these are the ones I'd suggest you use. But no pressure. Get whatever competition kettlebell you like and start the practice. I also have a course to teach you this in the Stronger Human community. Now, another way these movement practices are amazing for humans, athletes, and martial artists comes in the way you learn to move your feet. These exercises involve moving the weight around your body. Your center of gravity shifts in ways that require you to adjust your stance or balance from the feet. This can improve your foot strength, core strength, and stance stability. And if you haven't checked it out, I made a detailed video on how to strengthen your feet here. This is super important for your overall movement health and can help you get out of pain by improving your body's ability to function as a whole unit from the ground up. Clubs show us how important the feet can be. Initially, you'll be in a neutral stance, but when you improve with the club, you learn to shift your weight and your stance to counterbalance the club's motion. Kettlebell flows might involve lunges, pivots, and stance switches. Rope flow explicitly includes footwork patterns. All of this means you're not just standing in one spot lifting, you're learning to wield weight while moving. This last one's the most satisfying, enjoyable, and arguably the most important of all. For the longest time, my goal has been to find a way to get into a flow state while working out. The term flow is used for both the physical style of movement and the mental state that it causes. In martial arts, achieving a flow state, a relaxed but focused mind during combat, is a goal every practitioner wants to reach. You need to have practiced a set of movements and skills that becomes second nature, so actions and reactions flow out of you without conscious thought. Wielding weighted tools can help you practice that mental quality. The repetitive and rhythmic nature of swinging and the necessity to concentrate can push you into a meditative focus where movement happens smoothly and instinctively. If you don't feel like you've ever experienced a flow state during movement before, let me tell you. For me personally, nothing compares to it. The goal is to get to a point where you're not thinking of the next move. It just happens, and it's the right move. Practiced writers sometimes get into a creative flow where the right words just hit the page. Musicians play beautiful music effortlessly. Athletes describe it as being in the zone, and the martial artist is fighting and moving without thinking, because too much thought slows you down. Since experiencing this in jiu-jitsu, my goal has been to find a way to experience it in other movement practices, since too much jiu-jitsu can really make you feel beat up. And that's why I love wielding and swinging weight. When flowing with a kettlebell and performing hand switches, juggles, throws, and pivots, you have to be present to avoid mistakes. The club and rope bring about the same presence. You swing, rotate, pivot, move, find balance, create force, decelerate, and catch force. The movements don't stop, and your ability to stream movement together brings you into a physical flow state. You don't only condition the body, but also train the mind to enter a state of relaxed concentration, managing arousal and stress. And fighting and sports are unpredictable. You have to adapt techniques on the fly. Flow training with tools encourages improvisation. You might link exercises in a new order or recover from a miss in kettlebell juggling by flowing into a different movement. This trains a mindset of adaptability. Instead of rigidly performing a set routine, you go with the flow and your strength and movement fluidity improves. Now, what's the process of adding this into your practice? First, understand that you shouldn't stop lifting weights. I still lift, and I still focus on working my muscles in different ways. But when it comes to my personal movement practice, it's not the only thing I do. Almost every day, I'll spend at least 20 minutes minimum practicing flow work. This could be with the rope, kettlebells, clubs, and maces. The cool thing is that these practices don't need to fatigue you too much. Now, they can if you use much heavier loads, but if you want to get easier practice in, just use lighter weights. Start light with these practices, a light flow rope, a 6 to 10 kilogram bell. no weight or very lightweight on the adjustable clubs and maces. You might want to start heavy, but understand that when swinging, throwing, and catching these tools, they put a pulling force on your skeleton that you probably haven't dealt with before. I talked about these skeletal stresses in this video here about how you can increase your bone density, but you have to remember, start light. All this equipment I'm talking about is available at the Strong Human store. Ropes, heavy kettlebells, light kettlebells, clubs, maces, everything. These are dynamic movement skills. All you need to do is go outside, find some grass, and get to practicing. I don't look at this like a rigid training session. I just put on some music and practice movement. It's satisfying when a move you've been practicing finally clicks and you manage to string it into a flow with other movements you've learned. What's even better is that the upper limit of these practices goes farther as your movement vocabulary improves. As your shoulder mobility improves, overhead throws and club movements become easier. As you learn to anticipate the bell, you won't even need to see where it is to know where you need to place your hand. Then, when you least expect it, you're in a flow. You're not thinking, just moving, putting to work all that you've managed to learn. Now that you've learned how wielding tools can transform your body and movement, check this video out to understand how these tools and other stresses can increase your bone density. Or check this video out to learn how to jump again, something most people just stop doing and forget how to do safely. And that doesn't have to be you. So pick one or the other. Pick one.